Welcome back to the AMZ Affiliate Bootcamp course. We're in Module 8, Lesson 3, and we're going to talk about negotiating the sales process. Just a reminder, my name is Justin Cook, and I'm here with my business partner, Joe Magnotti. We're partners of a company called Empire Flippers, where we help others buy, sell, and invest in websites and online businesses. All right, so let's get into this. What are the steps to a sale? In the last lesson, we talked about preparing for and actually getting your site listed. So that was the first step here, submitting your site for sale. It's really quick. You fill out the form, fill out all the information that's required, and then sit back. The second step is to pass our vetting process. Now, this is a process we go through to match all of your numbers up, to make sure that you have ownership of the site, to make sure the earnings history and the trajectory, everything looks good. And this will generally take 1 to 2 weeks, normally about a week, week and a half for Amazon affiliate sites. It can take 2 to 3 weeks for more complicated types of businesses.
Yeah, we ask that you be patient with this process. It's an important step to making sure we have all your documentation in place. It's fairly straightforward with the Amazon affiliate site because the information is so readily available. But like I said, having the documentation in place so that buyers have easy access to it is important.
The third step is the sales process, and we're going to get into that in this lesson. One of the things I should mention is it says it varies, and it varies pretty significantly. And this is a question we get. We're going to answer this later too. But how long is it going to take me to sell my website? Well, it varies, and that's the truth. We've sold a $300,000 Amazon affiliate site in less than 30 days, and then we've had a $15,000 Amazon affiliate site that took 2.5 months. So it can vary pretty heavily. The fourth step in the process is going to be transferring the site. So this generally will take 1 to 2 weeks. It's just the process of transferring the site from you, the seller, to the new buyer, verifying that all the codes are working correctly, that the earnings are coming in, and that the traffic is as expected.
This is critical to the buyer, and this is one of the huge advantages that Empire Flippers has over other marketplaces and brokers. Most brokers would put this on you as the seller. You'd have to figure it out, how to change the codes, how to transfer that. If you're a technical person, it's fairly straightforward, especially with an Amazon site. But most sellers like to have us there because we have expertise in transferring hundreds, if not thousands, of sites over the years.
And the last step, the one you're really looking forward to, is receiving payment. Once the site's been transferred, the buyers verify the traffic and earnings. We're going to go ahead and forward that payment to you. We normally do it through a wire to your bank account, and that normally takes 1 to 2 days, just depending on the banks. A couple of quick notes. 90% of the sales that are completed within 30 days. So that means of the sites that we sell, 90% of them are done within 30 days. Now, it can take longer. It can take 2 months. It can take 3 months, even up to 6 months. And that's why we require 6 months of exclusivity. If you're going to list your site for sale with us, we ask that you list it for 6 months. Now, we like to under-promise and over-deliver, which is why we're generally asking for those 6 months.
Yeah, and there's a lot of work that goes into this. We'll get into that a bit later, talking about what we do during that 6-month process in order to market your listing. But know that especially on larger deals, there's a lot of high touch.
Yeah, that's high touch both from our team, which we generally do most of this. It's going to be mostly things even behind the scenes that you're not seeing we're doing, and we're doing a lot of the work. But there's more involvement both on our part and your part when you're selling larger Amazon affiliate sites. So if your site is making $10,000, $15,000, $30,000 a month, and you're looking at a low to mid 6-figure sale, we're going to have a lot more things that we need to do and things that you need to do to get the deal done. And we're going to talk about that briefly. All right, so let's get into this. The next step is what is involved in the vetting process. So this is after you've submitted your site for sale with us. It's not currently listed yet, and we're running through all of the information you've submitted and looking at the screenshots and earnings and history to making sure everything is verified. The first thing is we're looking for proof of ownership, making sure that you're actually the owner of the site and you have authorization to sell it. We don't want you selling someone else's site. That would obviously be a very bad thing. We're also looking to make sure that your earnings match the stated amount. So sometimes people get it wrong, right? You submit the information saying, oh, it's making $3,300 a month. Comes out it's making $3,100 a month. Not really a big deal, but would be a big deal if we started telling buyers mismatched amounts.
And our staff can help you with that. If you're having trouble getting the numbers right, calculating everything, especially if you use multiple Amazon Associates account, one from the USA, one from Canada, one from different European countries, our staff can go in, collect those numbers for you, match them up to a P&L, and make sure that everything equals out.
The next thing we're looking for is to make sure that your traffic sources are stable and consistent. What that means is just to make sure that your rankings have been similar over time, improving or slightly decreasing is okay, but to make sure there's not huge variances in what's going on with your traffic sources. We're also looking to make sure the age of the site and the earnings history are verified. So making sure that month over month, everything is as it's supposed to be. Now, during this entire vetting process, it'll take generally 1 to 2 weeks. Our team is going to be emailing back and forth with you. It can be anything from 2 to 5 emails back and forth just to make sure if we have any questions that you're able to answer them, and also to make sure you're responsive and keeping up on it and getting us the answers we need to, finish the vetting process.
Two other things we didn't mention that we do check are the content of the site and the backlink profile. We want to make sure that your content is 100% original, not copied or spun from any other sources. And we want to make sure that your backlinks are fairly clean, that you're not using any black hat techniques in order to build links and have a risky backlink profile.
A quick note I should mention is that we reject a little more than 30% of the sites that are submitted with us. So someone puts all their information together, they submit their site for sale, and they're hoping to list with us. Unfortunately, we have to give them the bad news. That usually comes down to inconsistencies, not meeting the requirements that we've talked about in previous lessons, or just generally not being a good fit for our buyers. Now, this is not personal. There's nothing personal about it, no issues there. What we're looking to do is protect our buyers and our sellers. The good news is that if we've accepted your site and it's passed our vetting process and listed on our marketplace, it has a very high likelihood of selling. Of the sites that we list over all time, we've sold more than 90% of the sites that were listed on our marketplace. So we have a pretty good indication and understanding of what our buyers are looking for. So if you've been listed on the marketplace, it's great news for you. You have a high likelihood of selling. All right, so let's say that you passed the vetting process. We've now emailed you, told you exactly what we're going to list for, make sure everything's good to go, and we're going to put you up on our marketplace for sale. Here's what happens. As soon as the site is listed, we're going to send an email out to more than 30,000 potential buyers, and it's going to mention your listing and your information and invite them to ask more questions and to get deeper involved in potentially buying your site. We're also going to put a social media push on that includes things like Twitter. It includes things like Facebook. In fact, if your site is large enough, we're actually going to give you a call and do a seller interview. It's not a requirement. You don't have to do it, but it's a great sales tool for potential buyers to listen to an interview with you. And don't worry about that. If your site qualifies, we're going to be in contact with you and we're going to walk you through the entire process. It's really easy. So after we've done that, we're going to start to get some inquiries from potential buyers. And the way they do that on our marketplace, which is a little bit different, is they make a deposit. So if your site is for sale for, let's say, $100,000, generally they're going to make a 5% deposit. That's a $5,000 deposit. That's a refundable deposit. It's a test for us to be able to verify that they have some access to cash. And the reason for that is we don't want a bunch of people, like hundreds or even thousands of people, looking at your site and potentially making copycats. Now, your site is likely to sell, so it's not actually to protect you as the seller. Now, a lot of sellers think, oh, thank God, I don't have to show my URL and everything to thousands of people. But the truth is, you're going to sell your site. So if there are copycats, it ultimately affects the buyer, not you.
Yeah, and I love using the deposit as a sales tool as well. It's a great filter for us to see who is a qualified buyer. Yeah, if they have 5%, does it necessarily mean they have the entire purchase price? Perhaps not, but most people that put down the deposit are genuinely interested in the site and know that they have to have the funds available.
And at Empire Flippers, we get tens of thousands of people visiting our site and looking at our marketplace every month. It's a great way for us to weed through the tire kickers and make sure that we're engaging real potential buyers. So let's talk about that. Now we're going to start getting some initial inquiries. We have people contacting us and asking us basic questions about the site. Sometimes those questions are already listed in the listing itself where we're selling your site. And so we can have our agents and our team get back to them and answer some of the basic questions. Some of the questions are a little more detailed or weren't actually initially asked of you. So we don't have that information. And sometimes we're going to pass those questions on to you. So we act as a buffer. We handle some of the initial inquiries, the basic information we've already collected from you. But if there's something very specific or different, then we're going to forward that question on to you and have you answer it so that we can then get back to that potential buyer.
And it's very important that you answer those questions quickly, if possible. If we sit on them a long time, buyers become disinterested and they want to move on to other listings.
Keep in mind that while there are plenty of buyers, hungry buyers looking specifically for Amazon affiliate sites, you're not the only rodeo. There are other sites that are available and for sale that they're looking at so they can move on and end up buying other sites. All right, so the next step, and this is really important for larger sites, if your site is probably 60,000 or more, definitely $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, is the buyer-seller call. So this is how this works. Once some of the initial questions have been asked from the depositor, either we've answered them or we've forwarded the questions to you and you've then answered them. We've done kind of the preliminary questions. Now the buyer wants to talk to you on the phone. And this is especially important for six-figure deals. They're going to want to have a conversation. It's not just to wire you the money and good luck. So what we do is we actually help set those calls up. We're going to pick a time that works for both you and the prospective buyer and schedule that call. So once the call is scheduled, what we're going to have is generally one of our sales guys, that'd be Joe, my business partner, or another guy named Mike, or someone else on our staff, that's going to schedule that call with you, and they're going to actually prepare you for the talk with the buyer. So this is something that I think a really unique value add we have. So maybe 20 to 30 minutes before your call with the buyer, you're going to get a call from Joe, Mike, or someone else on our staff that says, hey, look, I want to explain to you who this buyer is, what they're looking for, some of the things maybe to answer, some of the things you're going to want to make sure to tell them, some of the things to prepare so we can knock this buyer-seller call out of the park.
Yeah, and this is where I spend the vast majority of my time personally in Empire Flippers. I spend about 30 hours on the phone with buyers and sellers a week, making sure that these conference calls get done right. So we're going to walk you through step by step on how to do this process, make sure we're there during the call, and help you to present your business in the best light available.
So it sounds a little weird to say this, but we actually hold your hand through the buyer-seller call to make sure you have the best chance. And because our team has done this so many times, they have a very specific process they're going to walk through. Now, sometimes on these buyer-seller calls, you're going to get an offer. Now, it doesn't mean you have to accept that offer. It doesn't mean that it's written in stone, but this means generally that the buyer is particularly interested. Now, normally that offer is not accepted on that particular call. It's normally in a call or a follow-up where Joe or someone on our staff will call you after that buyer-seller call to kind of discuss how the call went and give feedback on future calls and to discuss any offers made.
Yeah, and this is, I think, where a broker really shines for most sellers is we can help you negotiate that sales process and make sure that we get the close to list value as possible. And that might require, some negotiation, some back and forth, but we have done this process before and we're very good at facilitating deals.
So sometimes the offer is not made on the buyer-seller call. Sometimes, it's a negotiation or there's an offer made a week later after the buyer's done more due diligence, which due diligence means they're looking into the site, verifying the information, checking everything to make sure that this is a purchase they want to make. So let's say that an offer comes in and your site was listed for $100,000 and you get an offer for, let's say, $70,000 or $80,000. Now, one thing you can think is, well, no way I'm selling for that. I'm not selling my website for $70,000. I reject the offer. But generally, that's not the best approach. There may be something more that the buyer is looking for than just the discount. And that's, I think, where guys like Joe and Mike and our team shine, is they're able to talk to the buyer, massage out of them exactly what they're looking for. Sometimes they're worried about not knowing the keyword research process, for example. So they want a discount because of that. And simply talking to you and making sure you have a documented process on the keyword research process that you can hand over to the buyer is going to get you more value. Maybe they go, okay, I don't need to discount, or yes, I just want $5,000 off or $10,000 off. So this is all part of the negotiation process that our team will help guide you on. Right. So there may be one person asks for a discount, another person asks not for a discount, but more training. And as long as you're flexible and willing to discuss and, negotiate back, we can help you get a deal. Now, once a deal has been made, specifically for sites under $50,000, $60,000, once a deal has been made, usually it's just a wire. We start the transfer process, we finish the transfer process, and we pay you out. For larger deals, $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, there may be a contract involved. Again, that's just a continuation of the negotiation. And sometimes lawyers are involved, and that's probably not lovely. We don't love that because it can be some back and forth. But we bring lawyers in, get the contracts, make sure everything's agreed in principle, and then both parties sign the contract. But once that's done, then we begin the transfer process.
Yeah, we can definitely help you navigate the contractual obligations. We have templates in place, and we actually have legal staff that can make modifications if necessary to our template contract to help you do that. The transfer process is fairly unique to Empire Flippers, and it's something that I think is one of our unique selling positions.
So the thing that kicks off the transfer process is the wire from the buyer. Once the buyer has wired the money over, we have that money ready to go. We're going to be in the transfer process, and that's something we actually do for you. And we do it because not everyone selling their website, does a couple dozen website transfers a month, and that's something that we do on a regular basis, and we're happy to handle for you to get it into the hands of the buyer. Once the buyer has received all the information, everything has been transferred to their accounts, they're up, running, receiving traffic and earnings. We then pay out the seller. We're going to pay you out 85% of the ultimate sales price. We keep 15% as commission, and that's it. And the deal is done. Now, it's important to remember that the deal is not done until you're paid out. So in terms of continuing to run the website as you normally would, to keep up on everything, to make sure everything is running smoothly, you're going to want to do that even when you've come to an agreement over the phone with the buyer. Let's say you're on a buyer-seller call. They say, I give you $100,000. You say, yep, I'm in. Let's do it. You can't stop working on the site. You need to make sure the site is updated, running until you get paid. That's the actual end of the deal. All right, so we've talked about the sales process. We've talked a lot about what value we provide and what we're doing for you during the sales process. Let's talk about your responsibilities. Here are the things that you're going to be responsible for. And the first thing is to respond quickly to buyer inquiries. Once we have your listing up, once we have your website for sale, and we have those inquiries coming in, you're going to need to be responsive. We've seen there are times where people are busy and it takes 2, 3, 4, 6 days to get back to those inquiries. That's not good. It means it's going to be more difficult to sell your site because buyers sometimes move on. They might be looking at multiple listings at once, and if they figure you're not responsive and someone else is responsive, they might end up buying that website instead. The second thing is to make sure that you have time available for buyer-seller calls. This is particularly important for the larger sites where the buyer-seller calls are required. If you're selling a $15,000, $30,000, $60,000, even a $60,000 Amazon affiliate site, you may not even have to get on a buyer-seller call. But if it's a larger site or we do set up a buyer-seller call, it's important to make sure you make that call.
Yeah, and as we've stated before, I'm going to help you through that process, or someone on our staff will, so you don't have to be afraid of saying the wrong thing on the call. If English is not your native language, that's not a problem. Again, we'll referee the call, we'll help you with all the questions, and we're going to prepare you pretty well for it.
One of the things you're going to want to remember, and something that's really important for you to do, is to be flexible with the offers. Again, don't take anything personally. If you have a $100,000 site, someone offers you $70,000, don't think it's a slap in the face. Don't think they're offending you. They might be trying to weasel a deal. We know these buyers because many of them, I think over half of our buyers are repeat buyers. So there's a good chance that we know them. We know where they're coming from. Yes, you got an offer. Maybe it's a lowball offer, but we're going to help you navigate this process. We're going to help you get through it. Now, a good thing to do is to not be completely unreasonable. We've had deals that were almost lost over like less than $1,000. And it was like, $120,000 deal. And it comes down to like an $800 difference and the buyer and seller won't budge, which is crazy for a $100,000 deal. $800, it's good to have principles, but don't get so stuck on such a small amount of money when the deal is on the line. And don't worry, I know it can be stressful. It can be intense, the selling process and the buying process. So that's one of the reasons we can step in and help massage those deals to get them done.
Yeah, the key thing is to work with your salesperson, whether that's me or Mike or someone else on our staff, and let them know what your minimum available amount is. And then we can try to negotiate with the buyer to come up to that, or to find a structure that will work in order to get your minimum price out.
One of the other things you're going to need to do is to update your traffic and earnings monthly if needed. So let's say, for example, that we get your listing up and live and available to our buyers on March 15th. Let's say April 1st rolls around. Yes, April Fool's Day, I know. But let's say April 1st rolls around. We're going to need updated information from you for March. We're going to need traffic information. We're going to need earnings information so that we can update all the information and keep it fresh. One of the things buyers look for is that they're looking at a listing and they see that a month or two has gone by and that information has not been updated. They're going to wonder, what's the problem here? Why hasn't it been updated? Is the seller not responsive? Do they not care? So that really doesn't look good for you. You want to keep that information updated. The other thing that's really important is that it is likely to change the price, especially if it earned more money. So if April 1st rolls around, your site earned more money in March. If we're using a 6-month or a 12-month history and it made more money in March, that means the price for your site is going to go up. One of the things we do is anyone that had been interested in the site previously at the lower price, we email them right away and said, hey, if you want to buy this site, you better buy it now because the price is going up. Now, the price will go up if they don't buy it quickly, but what that does is it motivates them. Say, look, you may save $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 if you buy it now. You better act.
Right. And we can use that as a sales technique in order to hurry a buyer along in a nice way to make them make a decision on purchasing your site. And even if your amounts have gone down, it's important that you update us quickly because this, again, is something that we can use as a sales technique. Sometimes, especially close to the end of the month, buyers sit on the sideline to kind of see how the month worked out. So by just delaying getting us the data, you're pushing back a potential deal.
And the truth is, if your site did go down in earnings and the buyer comes along, makes an offer, and then they find out the site went down in earnings, they're going to expect a discount, or they may not do the deal at all, thinking you were not being trustworthy and honest about the deal. So always, on any of these deals you're doing, it's better to just be very straightforward with your earnings, your traffic history, everything, so that you get the buyer that's the right buyer for you. All right, so let's talk about some of the common seller mistakes. Now, some of these mistakes are things that will lose you the deal, frankly. And if it doesn't lose the deal, it can actually lose you a lot of money in the sale. We've seen sales go for 10, 20, 30, 40% less because of some of these mistakes. So the first one is selling on potential. And this is a rookie mistake for people selling a website for the first time. You know, sometimes they'll say, look, the website is only making $1,000 a month right now, but with a couple of tweaks, we can get it up to $2,000, $3,000 a month. You should buy it for way more money because it's so easy to double or triple the earnings. And the problem with that is you're treating the buyer as if they're kind of dumb, right? You're saying, look, it takes 2 months. I can double or triple the earnings. You can do it too. Buy it for way more money. But the truth is, the buyer knows this. If it was so easy for you to do it, you just do it right now and sell in a few months.
Yeah, and the other thing is that even if a buyer believes in your plan in order to expand the potential of the site, their offer is most likely going to contain some sort of significant earnout. So they'll give you a lot less cash up front and say, if you hit these lofty, dreamy goals, then one day I'll pay you that amount. And you wind up sitting on the sideline and never getting that cash.
Keep in mind that the value always equals net monthly profit times your multiple. The multiple is generally 20 to 30 months. So if your net monthly profit is, $2,000 and your multiple is 20, you're likely to get $40,000 for the sale. Now, this is true because it's based on previous earnings over the last 6 or 12 months. We're not basing it on future earnings. This isn't Twitter. This isn't Facebook where you get some crazy, huge, multi-billion-dollar valuations. This is the rest of us. And we've done a lot of deals. This is the formula and the process used for selling websites under 5 million. Another common seller mistake is when they stop working on the site after listing it for sale. So what happens is a lot of sellers, they have multiple projects they're working on. They have multiple sites they're working on. Once they've listed a site for sale, they think, oh, you know what? I'm done. It's going to sell quick. I'll be done. I'll move on. I'm not going to do anything with the site anymore. And that can be problematic. So if they do that and leave it alone and there's a decline in earnings or there's some kind of problem with the site that they don't recognize and the site was down for a day or a week or a month, that can be really, really bad. It can cost them money in a sale.
Yeah, we see this a lot from rookie sellers, and I think it's something that it's important that we harp on a little bit to make sure that you understand how important it is. The deal is not done till the money is in your account, and anything, even simple things like updating WordPress plugins, should be done on a regular basis until the deal is completely finished.
The next point, we've mentioned this before, but being unresponsive to buyer questions or inquiries. If you're not getting back to them quickly, within a day, within 24 hours, like that's not good. You don't want to wait 3-4 days to get back to these questions. You want to answer them within 24 hours, when or wherever possible. One of the other tips or tricks I can tell you is that sometimes buyer questions are a little all over the place and they're hard to kind of decipher. And it's hard to kind of break those questions down. So what helps me is if I get what looks like 4 or 5 questions, I parse them by numbering them. I say, okay, here's question number 1, and then I write an answer to that. And I rewrite their question number 2, and here's the answer to that. And that generally helps keep everyone clear. A lot of times our team will do that too to make it much clearer for you. One of the other common seller mistakes is just being inflexible with offers. So sometimes you'll get an offer, like I said, that may be 70 or 80% of lists, and not understanding that what they're really looking for. They're just looking for like a slight discount, which is reasonable. Or you offered, let's say, 1 week of email support, and the buyer really wants 30 days. They want 30 days to feel comfortable that they can email you. Maybe they want 2 Skype calls. Normally, a lot of the times, the buyer doesn't actually need you for the Skype calls. They don't need the email support. So offering that additional support gives them kind of the warm and fuzzy to actually get the deal done, to make the offer, and to come to an agreement with you. So if you're inflexible, if you say, look, I'm only giving 1 week of email support, and all they're looking for is 30 days, and that's going to keep the deal from getting done, that's pretty painful. It's pretty painful for us because we're trying harder than you are to sell your site. So we'll help guide you on these things. If you have any question about what you should be flexible on or shouldn't be, or what other people are looking at your site, or where potential offers are going to be made, all you have to do is ask, and we're happy to guide you through that process. All right, so the next thing we want to cover is some frequently asked questions. The first one is, what are the chances that my site will sell? Well, the good news is that if you've passed our vetting process, there's a pretty good chance your site is going to sell at Empire Flippers. As I mentioned before, of all the sites we've ever listed, more than 90% of listed sites have sold through our marketplace. So that means there's a very good chance that your site is likely to sell if it's passed our vetting process. So that doesn't guarantee you that your site will sell, and it's hard for us to state. But there's a very good chance it will. The other thing I'll mention is that Amazon affiliate sites are relatively easy. There are plenty of people that have or can get Amazon affiliate accounts relatively easy. Everyone understands the monetization process. And if you're using Google Analytics or Clickian or following the guidelines that we've laid out in this module, you're going to have the best chance for success. Again, no guarantees, but your likelihood is high. The next question we get is, how long is it going to take my site to sell? And again, that varies. So we've sold $300,000 sites in less than 30 days, and it's taken us months to sell a $15,000, $20,000 site. A lot of those things are going to depend on problems you don't have, because we do sell sites other than Amazon affiliate sites. They're all different monetization methods, and some of them can be quite complicated or very technical. So it's a very technical site or it's a complicated site. Sometimes it can take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I'd say Amazon affiliate sites generally sell a lot faster. I will refer to one of the statistics that we've used and we've looked up is that of the sites we sell, 90% of them are sold within 30 days. That means from the time we list the site for sale to the time we get the money in the bank, it's less than 30 days for 90% of sold sites.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the marketing process that we have in place for getting buyers connected with the right listings. And that's why it's important that you help us when we ask you for questions. Like we've said before, we're going to assist you in navigating the entire process, but we are going to need information and input from you. So set aside some time for that while you're selling.
Another question is, should I accept a lower priced offer? And this is going to vary depending on the offer, depending on how long your site's been listed and how it compares to some of the other sites we've sold. And this is one of the things that's very subjective, right? It's going to depend. And so one of the things we ask you to do is to rely on our team and our expertise. We've done a lot of these deals. We do deals on a regular basis, and all you have to do is ask. A lot of times an offer may be sent from a buyer, and our team submits that or forwards that offer to you and says, would you like to accept? Would you like to counter, or would you like to reject? At any point when you get that email, all you have to do is say, hey, would like some guidance here. What do you guys recommend? And we'll step in, we'll get on the call with you, and we'll walk you through it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things to keep in mind are the speed at which you need to sell the business. I tell sellers all the time, Empire Flippers is not going anywhere. The marketplace is going to be here. If you want to keep the site listed and try to get as close to list price as possible, that's something we can absolutely do for you. However, if you want to get the money in your bank account a little bit faster, you need to be flexible on your actual sales price.
So one of the other questions that we get are like, what's the value of a broker? Like, why am I using a broker? Can't I just sell it for myself? Aren't I going to save myself 15%? And there's a bunch of ways to answer this, but I think one of the easiest is that generally when you sell with a broker, we put the information together and have a larger network than anyone individually selling their sites. Now, I have friends in the entrepreneurship industry that have hundreds of thousands of followers. Those people can pretty easily sell their sites themselves. They have a huge network of people that would potentially buy an Amazon affiliate site from them. On the other hand, most people aren't in that scenario. That's a very rare scenario. Whereas we have those networks. Another thing you need to consider is that as a seller, there are ways for buyers to scam you. Just one example would be sometimes, the buyer wants to send over, let's say, 50% of the fee or 50% of the list price, and then have you transfer the domain to them, and then they'll send you another, let's say, 25%, and then you transfer some more information, and then transfer the rest. What you may not know is that by transferring the domain, they can then take control of the site and cause you all kinds of problems. So, there are ways for buyers to scam sellers. I think it's more likely the sellers to scam buyers, but it actually works both ways. So, brokers have negotiated this before. Guys like us, this is what we do for a living. This is our main gig, and this is all that we do. So we do it on a regular basis. And I think ultimately the fact that we can give you a higher sales price and save you from potentially getting scammed and make the transfer process really smooth is a great reason to do business. All right, so now that we've negotiated the sales process, walk you through exactly how to sell your website, we're going to move into the more advanced tips, tricks, and tactics. In Lesson 4, we're going to be talking about becoming a website selling and buying pro.